with Frank Napolitano and Paul Rushforth. Here is Steve Gregory.
Does it get any better than this?
Long weekend, plus 25, plus 26.
Oh, perfect. Perfect long weekend.
The real estate business must be booming.
It's so busy that Paul can't even be here.
He's still celebrating. That 50, wait until he gets to your age, 70-something. Holy mackerel.
I can't wait to get there either.
I can't either.
Frank is here. Glenn Tomlinson joins us. This is your first full show.
It is.
This must be the most exciting moment of your life.
Absolutely.
Listen, I'm not holding it against you that you're wearing that ugly Vancouver Canucks jersey today.
It's playoffs now. They could take out Edmonton tonight.
Well,
could have been a Leafs jersey.
Oh, no, he wouldn't be in the studio. No, he'd be calling in with a Leaf jersey on.
So did Glenn buy coffee?
Glenn did. Glenn is following in Paul's footsteps so well. So well. No such thing as buying coffee.
Didn't get the memo.
The only time he buys breakfast, Paul, is for himself.
True.
It's the only time he buys breakfast.
That's true. Tell us a little bit about your history, Glenn.
A little bit about me. Well, my real estate career started actually in Vancouver. That's the jersey.
Now it all makes sense. You can leave now.
You left. Let me guess. You left right after you lost to Boston in Game 7. That's when you got out of that city. Ouch.
No, I moved here to Ottawa in 2017, so coming up on 8 years. Sold real estate in Vancouver for 10 years before moving here.
And how did you end up with Paul?
That's a good question, actually. I came.
That'll be the only one this hour, by the way.
Yeah, I came over when we merged with Tracy Arnett Realty.
Oh yeah, okay.
Oh, you were with Tracy then?
Correct. Yeah.
Very cool.
So is this a good move for you then?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, things are going great.
Good answer.
I love it.
He's on live radio, Steve.
Yeah,
there's only one answer that's coming out of his mouth.
What's going on in the market now? Or now that we're the unofficial beginning of summer with this weekend, obviously this weekend will probably be slow, I'm thinking.
So numbers for May, I ran the numbers for the first 2 weeks of May up to the 15th, and sales are down compared to where they were last year.
Oh, really?
Sales are down about 14% from where they were in 2023. So we've seen some fairly flat sales in the last 4 weeks. Just hasn't picked up like we would have expected for a spring market. But looking at sort of big picture, it's kind of looking more like pre-COVID type numbers we're seeing here.
Really?
Which is normal.
Yeah.
But pre-COVID is normal. Well,
right.
Pre-COVID, if you're talking about January, February, that's not good because that's historically probably our quietest months.
No, I'm going back like historically, looking at
at
numbers.
At May?
Yeah. So I mean, it's nothing out of the ordinary. You know, the one thing that was kind of interesting here is when we're looking at the stats from since COVID, nothing's been typical about that, right?
No,
so
zero has been typical.
Right. So our inventory levels are creeping up, but still half of where they were back in 2014.
Well, they did a poll. 72% of people are going to wait until borrowing costs come down. 72%.
I think, and listings must be up. Certainly year over year, listings are up, right?
So inventory year over year is up about 50%.
Yeah, which, again, makes sense because I think some Canadians are coming to realization, and in Ottawa, that it's just unaffordable sometimes to own a home, specifically if you bought it during the high period, which was, middle 21 to middle 2022 when prices were elevated. And if you took a variable rate mortgage, you're really seeing the cost go way up. But if you took a shorter term mortgage, now it's coming up for renewal, you're really struggling. Not to mention the fact that everything else is so much more expensive today.
Yeah, if you took a 3-year mortgage back then, you were in big trouble, huh?
I had a client that took a 3-year and kicking himself so hard right now. I mean, it's a $750,000 mortgage, and he goes, Frank, I thought they might be up 1%, but not 5% like they are right now.
So the 3-year then would have been
in the ones.
Ooh.
Low ones. 1.29, I think he said he got.
And now the best he can get is what?
5-something,
4.7?
5.5.
Oh, really?
For a 3-year?
Oh, if he goes
for a 5-year,
yeah.
You're 4.79, 4.89, depending on the circumstances. So
they haven't come down at all.
Bond markets have been extremely, very much like a roller coaster. Couple of days when they come down, and there was a day this week on May 15th, on the Wednesday, that they came way down, and by the time yesterday ended, they were almost back to where they were when that morning started. So we're seeing a lot of that over the last 2-3 weeks. Tuesday's going to be an interesting day because the inflation report comes out on Tuesday, and the expectation and the hope is that it stays in that 2.8, 2.9% range and doesn't hit the 3. But if it's the 3, there's still a small chance the Bank of Canada can drop prime rate on June 5th, as long as the core inflation numbers are intact. But if the core inflation numbers rise, then I think we'll be in a position where we're going to sit tight again, which will make it almost a full year, because last July is the last time Bank of Canada rose prime, and it's been flat ever since. But then the expectation's fairly high that if numbers come in as expected, July 26th, we'll see prime rate finally come down by a quarter point, and then hopefully that's the start of multiple rate drops as we go on every.
Do we have an employment report coming before that, before June 5th?
No, we just had one, right? So they created all those jobs, which, again, as you dig deeper into those statistics, you'll see that our government was responsible for about half of those jobs. So the good thing about that, if you're waiting for interest rates to come down, is that can't continue. So if private jobs are not up, and the private jobs were mostly part-time jobs, and it's determined that a lot of them were actually second jobs, people taking out second jobs because they're struggling to make ends meet with their full-time jobs. So, the good news about that report was that it opened that up, and if the government jobs start to come down, then we'll start to see the job report drop a little bit, which is, not what Canadians need to see. But immigration still, for the first quarter of this year, immigration was higher than it was the first quarter of last year. So, again, the numbers are sketchy at best. Sometimes when you read these reports, they don't make a lot of sense, and they could change from month to month, and that's what we're hoping, because if the job report isn't healthy in June, then the chances of a July rate drop are very high.
Yeah. What kind of clients are you seeing now? Are you seeing move-up clients, or mostly people that already own a home that are looking for something else?
Yeah.
Or are you seeing any first-time home buyers at all?
No, absolutely first-time buyers in the market. I do run into a fair number of first-time buyers that do sit on the fence. They're qualified to buy now, but are waiting for interest rates to ease off.
Are they looking and waiting, or are they just
a little bit of both?
More waiting than looking?
But probably, I would say more of the buyers out there are people with something to sell.
But now they need somebody to buy if they want to sell.
Correct, yeah.
So you're seeing move-up buyers from like townhomes to singles, that kind of thing?
Yeah. It's just a bit of a mixed bag, a little bit of everything in there.
Are we going to see more people go from condos to townhomes, or are people going to make the jump from condo to single family, do you think, once we get rates in order?
Well, condos are actually kind of an interesting thing right now. I know we've talked a lot about inflation, and with condos, the inflations have impacted their finances too. So we're seeing a lot of bad status certificates come back on condo purchases. So,
oh, really?
Yeah. Well, in Ontario, every 3 years you have to do a reserve fund study, right? And if you've got a reserve fund study from 2019 or 2020, and you're or even 2021, and you're coming to update it, you're basing all your finances on old information or outdated data. So if your budgets were already tight, you're looking at assessments or low reserve funds.
Which means more in maintenance?
Which means potential for special assessments. So
or higher condo fees.
Or higher condo fees,
yeah.
So we're starting to see a little bit more of that in some of the condos that are just not quite prepared for the inflation.
So how do you know when the condo is coming up to take a look at see what the reserve is?
Well, that's where you want to make sure you do a status certificate review and have a good look at those documents.
I've heard some lawyers charging for that now. Like I know there's a fee to get it anyway, but now they're even charging to review it for you.
Really?
Yeah, we're starting to see some funny surcharges across the board.
But you got to do it.
Lately.
I mean, otherwise you could be.
You don't have a choice.
You could be hooped.
You're nuts not to do it. Well, it's usually a condition, right? When you're.
Yeah, you'll get a condition in there where you order a fresh status certificate. Sometimes the listing agent will have one, but we always advise getting your own.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, it's also the most up to date. As far as what lawyers charge for that, we always advise clients to ask what those charges would be. But
yeah, do your research on lawyers. Again, we're starting to see some lawyers really start to add some extra charges to, and only because they're hurting a little bit too, right? If the transactions are way down, then they're trying to maximize their earnings. But unfortunately, I mean, because the transactions are down, they're not getting as many clients as they did during that 2-year period where it was nuts.
What are you seeing for lawyers' fees now?
Oh, it's all over the map. That's the one thing that's very interesting is that I've had clients call me and say there's $500-$600 on a refinance from one lawyer to another. Pretty significant sometimes. So I'd like to think that lawyers should be within $100-$200 of each other, but again, there's some lawyers that charge extra now if there's a third party involved, which a lot of lenders use a title insurance company to do some of the docs. So they charge extra because there's a little bit more work that they have to do. Even though in many cases, I think the legal assistants do most of that work. But
they do all the work.
Yeah, yeah, probably true, right? I mean, I don't know. I haven't been in the office, but when I've signed my own paperwork, I usually meet with the lawyer. But I'm sure that all the behind-the-scenes stuff is done by the legal assistant.
Yeah. So what are you looking at for cost if you're closing on a house?
On a purchase?
Average, yeah.
On a purchase, well, you're probably looking at, I would say, I don't know, we should get Michael Abrams.
$3,000?
Well, by the time that you count all the disbursements and then on top of that, you got to add the land transfer tax. And if you purchased a home with less than 20% down, there's PST on the default insurance as well. So, we always recommend the clients to have about 1.5% of the purchase price set up for closing costs. That's on an average $500,000-$600,000 home. You get into the $700,000, $800,000, $900,000, then we say could be closer to 2% because, again, that land transfer tax goes up so significantly as you get into the more expensive homes.
How quietly that happened, eh?
It's interesting to hear our provincial government during the pandemic tell people not to pay their rent, right? It's okay, don't pay your rent. If you're not working because wherever you work is closed, don't pay your rent. But did they ever do anything about all the real estate transactions that were happening and tell people, we're going to give you a break on the land transfer tax? None of that happened.
Nothing.
Right? None of that. But don't pay your rent. But we're still going to collect that land transfer tax.
Well, and how much more are they getting now with the cost of homes?
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
They're getting 50% more.
How much revenue? Same thing as those safety cameras that are out there. I mean,
oh, don't get me started with those.
I didn't think you want to go down that road.
I
know how to push your button.
I put my GPS on the other day. Red light district. Red light ahead. Radar ahead. Radar ahead. Red light. Radar. Red light. It's like every intersection.
And now the speed cameras they're adding 40, 50 more this year. So, I don't know where that money's going, but.
Oh, maybe the closing costs on homes will go down with all this extra money.
Not happening.
521-TALK, 521-8255. We'll be right back. Wilkinson, I don't know where I got that from.
I don't know where you got it from either.
He makes basketballs.
You are struggling with names there.
I am.
I heard it from Sean all week. I can't believe he called me Scott.
I like Scott better now that I think of it. Though.
I called him Scott too when I was with him on Wednesday. So, which, by the way, Mortgage Brokers Ottawa did win the award again for regional mortgage brokerage.
Congratulations!
Thank you. It
well done.
was big thrill.
Is that 2 in a row now?
2 in a row. I was not expecting to win, so I didn't go up there prepared to say anything. So I was.
Oh, I don't think you ever have a problem speaking.
Yeah,
Frank.
I'm still.
You make an appointment with Frank at 10 in the morning, you can count on being there till 3.
Yeah, 600 people. It was. This is way easier to do than speaking in front of 600 of your coworkers.
So, what was the award?
Regional brokerage for Ontario. So we.
That's fantastic.
We took home the award, which was awesome. Again, it goes to the whole team. Everybody's congratulating me. It's like, wait a second, I didn't win. It didn't say Frank Napolitano. It said Mortgage Brokers Ottawa, which is the entire team. So, congrats to everyone. David, Andre, and Amanda were nominated for community service, and again, that one is a national award. And they were a finalist, the top 5, and they didn't win. But I said to them, "You're winners. You made top 5 in Canada."
Yeah, no kidding.
For a community award, and he's got a golf tournament. They've got a golf tournament coming up in Cornwall in July sometime. So,
congratulations!
Yeah, it'll be awesome. And
AMIC
was up for private lender of the year as well, and again didn't win, but nonetheless, I mean, to be in the top 5 nationally for a private lender, pretty cool. So we're extremely proud.
AMIC's what now? 8 years?
10 years.
10
years.
years.
The end of August. Yeah. We're finishing our 10th year at the end of August.
Wow.
So pretty crazy.
So how many people do you have working for you now?
At the AMIC or
at
MBO?
Both. At both.
Between 125 and 135 if we count the agents and all the salaried staff. So it's a pretty big company.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. It's gone well. We're extremely proud of what we've accomplished, but no thanks to the community, and we try to do as much as we can to give back to the community as well. So.
And meanwhile, Glenn does it all himself.
All himself.
It's unbelievable.
Paul's still on vacation celebrating his 50th birthday.
Yeah, I think he's going to do that until he's 55. It'll be Freedom 55 when he comes back.
I heard he's trying to save money to buy breakfast once this year for me.
Oh, this could be a while then.
Oh, it's going to be a while. I think so too.
Ouch.
Yes.
Glenn, what do you think it's going to take for people to get back into the market? What is one drop going to do it? Just change the people's emotions, or are we looking at 2 or 3 drops before people get back in seriously?
I think even the initial rate drop, when it starts to happen, I think is going to change some of that buyer confidence. But as far as affordability goes, it's going to take more than one rate drop. So I think the people that are priced out have got a ways to go before the rates drop. And at that point, you might miss the boat because the prices, I think, will start to increase.
That's what I was just going to say. When you talk about affordability, if the rates drop, you go, I can finally afford it now. The home prices should probably go up because demand will go up, right?
Right. And just looking at the inventory we have, although it has crept up quite a bit in the last year, it's still historically low. So in my opinion, it's not going to take a whole lot of a shift in this market with an uptick in buyer activity for it to eat up this inventory we have.
So now what's the timeline on this?
Again, I think a lot of it just hinges on the interest rates.
But if it comes down a quarter point in June, is that enough to get the market going, or do we have to wait for July? And if we don't get anything till July?
I think we'll see the market pick up. The interesting thing, though, is the timing of it all is, if it happens as we head into a summer market, that's typically when it starts to slow a little bit. People are going on vacation, going to cottage, that kind of thing. So, I mean, it could be the fall of this year or even into the spring market of next year when we start seeing real drops happen.
Yeah, where I think it's going to be the spring and not that I think the fall, the late summer, fall could see a little bit of a boom, but where I think it's going to really come into play, because a lot of people, if you have families and you got to change your kid's school, you're not going to move and you're not going to buy in September, October, November, and then move in December halfway through the year and get your kids unless you're moving in the same neighborhood. So that's why I think that next spring should be an extremely robust real estate market. And we'll see by then interest rates should be down anywhere between 1 to 1.5%. So, you look at prime then, which could be in the mid fives at that point by then. And if you're in the mid fives and you're getting a variable rate mortgage or prime -1, you're at 4.5, which is much more reasonable.
Qualifying's easier.
And by then, fixed rates should be well into the maybe lower 4s, higher 3s, which again means qualifying's a little easier. So I think we're on our way there. But the one drop, whether it's in June or in July, unless there's bigger drops, right now we're just anticipating 0.25% drops at a time, because that's definitely the way TIF is hinting, that the rates are going to be calculated and very, very small. I think if inflation were to get below 2% and the job report being negative, that's when we could see the 0.5%-0.75% drops. And then at that point, we got to cross our fingers and hope that the banks follow the Bank of Canada and give that same drop and don't keep some of it for themselves, which I'm afraid might happen.
But we can't drop too much quicker than the States, and the States are talking about their first drop maybe September.
Yeah, September to December, so depending on how their numbers come in. But, most economists in Canada have said that we can get away with 3 or a 0.75% rate drops, whether it's 3 1/4 ones, which is what we think is going to happen. But then if we get to that third one and the U.S. hasn't started dropping their treasury, then the risk is that the Canadian dollar can get into the low 60s, so they don't want that either. So I think, we're going to be afforded at least 1, 2, maybe even 3 rate drops before the U.S. Starts. But if the U.S. then starts, then that'll be a good sign for Canadians going into 2025.
All right. So are you looking at people for pre-approvals now? Are they starting to come in again?
We are. Again, the problem with a lot of the pre-approvals is you have to qualify them at such a high rate that it's...
When are they going to change that?
Not anytime soon. The way I hear it, it doesn't sound like anytime soon.
Election time?
It's hard to say, right? I mean, it all depends. They're not going to change at election time unless, the existing government sees an opportunity to maybe get some votes. But I think by then he's burned anyway at that point. Like, I don't think he's going to have a chance of making that change. I don't think he's going to be able to get those voters back. It doesn't feel like it anyway.
So what are we doing today in order to sell? What do you have to do to sell your house today?
Well, it's got to show well. It's got to photograph well. So we're fortunate to have Greg on our team taking these amazing photos.
He can make a dog look good. Trust me, he did it to my house.
Yeah, and pricing.
Wait, you want me to move these boxes, Greg? No, that's all right. I'll take care of it.
That's what Photoshop's for.
There you go. But pricing is really important. You've got to have it in the wheelhouse. Otherwise, the buyers these days are just too educated. They're not even going to look at it.
Really? And the pricing now is different from neighborhood to neighborhood, right? A townhome in one spot could be worth a lot more than a townhome in another spot.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, neighborhood to neighborhood makes a big difference.
And does it depend how many townhomes are available?
Inventory and sales activity, absolutely. It's sort of economics 101, right? You have, if there's limited supply and lots of buyers, then yeah, there's going to be a higher price point or an upward tick on prices anyways.
Is there one thing moving more than another? Condos, townhomes, freeholds?
Townhomes, to me, seem like the market's a little saturated. But again, it's just neighborhood dependent. So when we're looking at and evaluating, a specific property, we want to look at the area and see what kind of inventory is available, because that is definitely going to impact it.
So you really got to know what you're doing when you're pricing a home today.
Absolutely, yeah.
You want to get in and you want to get as much excitement as you can. You don't want to price too high. You don't want to price too low.
Well, that's right. You want it sold. You don't want to be the bridesmaid that's just always sitting there and your neighbors are all sitting around you.
And you know what makes him a good agent, Frank? He took off the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah, he did.
It's getting too hot in here. You guys got to get the AC going.
I like to support my team for 10 minutes.
Yeah, 17 years of this temperature in this room. It ain't changing anytime soon.
Hey, they're going to do some work in here next week. Maybe they'll fix it.
They are. You're going to get to hear the same thing next week from us, unfortunately, because we're not in studio next week.
Say that again?
What? Say it again? You're going to hear the same show again. It's going to be a repeat next week.
Groundhog Day.
521 Talk 5218255. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the show. Glenn Tomlinson's here. Frank Napolitano is here, talking about Vancouver earlier. 2/3 of people's monthly income goes to rent now. Renters in Vancouver are spending 2/3 of what they earn on rent.
Yeah, rents are out of control everywhere. But
2/3, though.
There was also an American investor who came on a social media feed that I saw this week, and he goes, the worst place to buy an investment property today is Ontario. And the reason for that is because they've got rent control, right? So,
but only in
Ontario.
Only in newer properties, though.
Well, the newer properties you don't have rent control, but so
2018 and beyond.
Yes,
you don't.
Any property that was built before 2018, don't buy it because the interest rates go up by 300-400%, and you can only increase rent by 1.5%. Not to mention, he was very, very clear in saying, and good luck if a tenant doesn't pay you getting them out. It's not like here in the U.S.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem.
You could be 12 months before you get any rent, and you're still making those mortgage payments. And by the way, you don't get to drop your keys off at the bank and say, here you go, the person's not paying me rent. That's not the way it works in Canada. Canada works way differently than that. They go power sales. So the advice was, do not. If you want to move there and live there, that's one thing. But if you're going to buy an investment property, pick any other province than Ontario. Do not buy in Ontario.
Yeah, the biggest problem in Ontario is, the Tenancy Act is very much in favor of a tenant, but even the rules that are in place, it just takes so long to get a hearing with the Landlord-Tenant Board right now. You could be months trying to get a tenant out. And then as far as
you could be months trying to get a hearing.
That's what I mean, yeah. And so, I mean, even trying to sell, right? When you give an N12, that's just a notice of eviction. It's not actually an eviction. Yeah. Right? You've got to go. Landlord-tenant board's the only one that can actually evict.
Well, the board's got to hear it. That could take 6 months, maybe even longer.
Yeah.
Then they get to decide, and then it's up. The tenant's still got to leave, and in the meantime, they have to keep paying you, and they're probably not.
Well, and you got to pay your mortgage. It's not like, most people that own investment properties have mortgages, so it's not like they get a break. It's not like you can call the bank or lender and say, listen, I've got a dispute. My tenant's not paying me. Can I get a break on mortgage payments? You might get a 1-month reprieve of a mortgage payment, but you're not getting 6 months or 12 months of mortgage payment retrieve. So that's the issue. Do
you think there'll be a bit of a change now that Equifax and TransUnion are going to be looking at renters?
Yeah, but that's not coming for a while. I mean,
do you think it'll change, though? Do you think that'll change people paying their rent on time?
People who are late on rents are likely late on credit cards or late on car payments, or they're just late on everything. So will it impact their credit bureau? No, because it's probably already poor. That's why they can't buy a house in many cases, because they don't make their payments. And mortgages is the toughest credit to get approved. You can get a car loan easy. You can get a credit card easy, but the mortgage is the one that if you miss any payments, you're in trouble getting a mortgage. It's going to be really hard. So do I think that...
but will that help investors, though, knowing that people's credit score will go down in that 6 to 8 months if they decide not to pay rent?
The most important thing for a landlord to do is really, really dig deep. Do not accept renters' references. They're giving you references of people that like them, know them. So you're not finding out what's really going on. They're not going to give you a reference of somebody that doesn't like them. Like, I've never seen that. So, and so some people say, well, then maybe I'll get the reference of the landlord that I'm with now. The problem with that is that if you're not making payments to this landlord, the landlord is glowingly going to talk about you, saying how awesome you are, because they don't want you as a tenant. So they're going to want you to go somewhere else. So it's tough. Like I've always said, if you're going to rent out a property, you can weed them out fairly quickly by asking the tenant to provide you with a credit report. So it costs about $30 to get an Equifax report with a credit score on it. So if there's two people, it's $60. And I would always say, and I'll give you $100 off the first month's rent if you provide me with these credit reports. But let them do the credit reports and then share them with you directly from the Equifax website. So that's one way of determining whether they've got a history of being late on everything. And if they make all their payments, then the chances are you might be good on the payment side.
Yeah.
The other part of it, though, is how they're going to treat your property. So they could be really good at making payments, but they could be pigs inside the house. So that's the other part. I mean,
I can't wait to buy an investment property.
Yeah,
now.
Well, it does, right? So it does scare people. I mean, the combination of everything makes it scary for the average person to be able to buy an investment property, because they'll be turned off real quickly if one of those things goes sideways. And now on top of that, hasn't passed yet, but the capital gains goes up on the money you make too. So it's becoming less and less attractive for people to buy investment properties, and especially with the interest rates where they are now.
Well, you can't be seeing too many investment properties being sold these days because of cash flow alone.
Yeah, well, cash flow is tough to do, and you're right. You know, qualifying a tenant is massive. It's a really important thing to do. There are other things you can do as well. You know, cross-referencing name, looking on Canley, things like that to see if they've had court orders on them. You also want to be, one thing you can do is, if you're interviewing that tenant, go to their current place. You know, if they're living in like a pigsty, then that's a pretty good indicator. You know, there's a number of more things you can do when you're qualifying a tenant for sure. But yeah, like you say, cash flow is a problem.
Yeah, and there's more good tenants than bad tenants out there. So let's not make this sound like there's way more good tenants.
But if you get a bad one, it's horrendous.
That's the problem, right? So there's many of them are good tenants. You know, there's some that are absolutely extraordinary, and then there's good tenants. Those you can deal with. The ones you got to be careful of, the ones that know the game, know what they can get away with, know that they can stop paying you, and know that it's going to take 12 months before you can get them.
And then they'll move on to somewhere else. Yeah.
And then they'll move on to somewhere else, and you'll be out a whole year's worth of rent.
Yeah, so that kind of tenant, though, that like a professional tenant that you're describing.
Which is what they're called.
Right.
Yeah.
So that kind of tenant is someone that's probably had a hearing, and that's where the Canley search is important.
Yeah. Yeah, but people don't know how to do it, right? So would a realtor
Absolutely
help them with that?
100%.
Okay, that's
only a smart one like Glenn.
Yeah. Glenn Tomlinson?
Yeah. Why are we laughing? It is Tomlinson.
I know, but I got it right. Somebody else in this room did.
But you had that question mark there. So what will that report show? If they've had any arrears?
So, no, what we're looking for is cross-referencing to see if they've had an eviction order through the landlord-tenant board, right? That's helping to find that professional tenant. The other thing is we are in chat groups with other agents throughout the region. So, you know, for example, there was a post in one of our groups recently where there's tenant using forged documents for employment. And it was hard to see it, but if you knew what to look for.
The credit report shows it, right? You get a credit report, it'll show you your employers.
Yeah, but you got to be careful with credit reports too. If a tenant's supplying it with PDF editors and things like that, it's so easy to forge those. So you have to be careful of that. We always advise to pull the credit report. So when people sign the application form, it gives you authorization to pull your own credit report on that tenant.
If I'm pulling a credit report, I'm asking the client for $60 up front. Give me $60 cash, and I'll pull your credit report.
Well, they can pull their own online. You can see it right there.
Well, if you're with them, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, as long as you're with them, right? So you can pull up your laptop and say, here you go. You know, you can plug in your credit card and you can pay for it yourself, but I need to see that you're pulling it up and it's not edited. So the same thing with banks.
How updated is employment anyway on credit reports?
Well, again, every time that a credit report is pulled, it takes the information that's on that application and transfers it to the credit bureau. Right. So addresses are there, previous addresses are there, employment's there. If there's any name changes, that's there. So generally speaking, you see it in females that get married and then get separated. You see the name changes happening. How long the activity has been, whether there's been any bankruptcies and or consumer proposals. I mean, there's a lot of information on those credit bureaus, which is very, very critical. Now, is there mistakes on credit bureaus? There are.
Yeah.
And sometimes
and
there's
good luck correcting
explainable.
them.
Well, there's explainable, and I'll give you an example. This week we had a client that never missed a payment, and all of a sudden there's an R2, which is just 30 days late, on a credit card. And I asked him about it. He goes, "What are you talking about? I've never had that credit card." It ended up being a fraudulently credit card that somebody applied using his information, and $12,000 is owing on it, and hasn't made any payments on it. It was only open 2 months ago, and finally he got to the company, and they said, "Yep, you're right. This is not yours, but it's going to take 6 to 8 weeks to correct it." Well, his mortgage matures in 2 weeks, so yeah, that's a problem. But luckily, again, I mean, I convinced the lender. I said, "Look at his whole credit history. He's been on the credit bureau for 30 years, never missed a payment. You think this looks out of character? Because it does to me.
Yeah.
Why all of a sudden is there missed payments when there's never been any missed payments? Both of them working for the government, making an excess of $180,000 combined. They have a rental property, only 60% loan to value. This is out of character. So they made the exception, but that's what you need to do. And again,
but that's where a broker comes in handy too, because
very much so.
You got to have somebody that can defend you,
that fights for you. But it's incredible to see how the credit score today, regardless of whether there's any mistakes or not, really influences whether a lender wants to move forward. And they don't. The old days, we used to dig deep into the credit bureau and find out why the score is where it is. Today, they don't care. They look at the score and they either say yes or no to begin with.
And what do you need minimally?
Well, if you're going through a traditional institutional lender, they like to see 650 or higher. If it's below 650, then they really start to look at it closely. But even at 700, I've seen them look at it closely and say, why'd they have such a high limit on this card? It's like, but who cares? Like, they owe $150. Who cares if the limit's $30,000? Yeah. Why does that matter? So again,
as long as you stay below 50% on your card, you should be all right.
That's the goal for most people. Never miss any payments. Stay below 50%, and your credit score should always be in the 7s and 8s. Yeah. Always.
521-TALK, 521-8255. We will be right back. Welcome back. Glenn Tomlinson here. Frank Napolitano here. Paul is off today, celebrating his 50th birthday from 1975.
74.
74?
74.
No, I mean the celebration has lasted that long.
I don't think he started drinking at 1, but close. But close. You're probably not that far off. No.
What are your plans for today, Glenn? You showing any homes?
Yeah, I've got some appointments later. Got to be a timekeeper for my daughter's hockey game later. And then, of course, I'm going to sit down and watch the Canucks take out Edmonton tonight.
Now, there's a chick magnet.
Yes.
I'm the timekeeper for my daughter's tournament.
It's long weekend in May, and there's hockey?
She's 4-4, yeah, spring league.
That's great. Hockey doesn't stop any. There used to be a time when in March, whatever, the playoffs would end and kids would get a break from hockey. There's probably just as much hockey now as there is during the winter. Yeah. Everybody I talk to has got a kid that's got hockey practice or hockey tryouts or in spring leagues and stuff. It's incredible how much of that
So she doesn't just play as well. So she took the refereeing course, and so she rests 4 or 5 games a weekend, yeah.
Holy
cash money, eh?
Yeah. Well, you don't make enough to pay tax on it, yeah. So, but she gets paid each month on it. And it's like, nice.
So it saves you from giving her an allowance. Is that what it is?
Well, we're trying to teach financial responsibility early, right?
How old is she?
I would use that line too.
Yeah. Well, no, it's seriously. It's like when she gets paid, we encourage her to put 20% of it away each time.
But this is where the schools need to step up.
No, I get it. I never learned any of that. I mean, you learn it from
either did
your parents or your family members that are in the industry, and that's who you learn it from. But the kids come out of there with no concept of how to maintain good credit scores,
how to budget, how to
budget. You go to universities and they throw these credit cards at you, and you're not working. You're in school. How are you going to pay them? Like they don't. The lenders or the banks and the credit card issuers should be sitting there having a 10 or 15 minute conversation about, this is what you need to do, and realize that you got to make the minimum payments every month. And
you want to make more than the minimum payment.
But otherwise, don't take it. Say no, because if you're going to get yourself in trouble, it's going to haunt you for a long time.
And every game you go to where they give you a T-shirt, you get a hit on your credit score.
Yeah. So,
but you get a T-shirt.
But you get a T-shirt. I haven't seen that in a while, thank God. But yeah. Hey, can I talk about a symposium that's coming up, which again, I think we're going to open it up to the real estate board, and only because we looked at the topics, and this is the Canadian Mortgage Broker Association's having back-to-back events. One of them is a golf tournament on the Wednesday, but on the Tuesday it's a symposium where all the lenders will be in the house. And what's really good about real estate agents is real estate agents know about the 6 major banks. They don't know who the other lenders are. And sometimes when a mortgage broker will say, hey, we're working with First National or MCAP, they'll say, who are they? So this is an opportunity for the real estate board to come to these symposiums where all the lenders are there and understand that these lenders are actually good people and good lender that's been, and some of them have been around like First National for 35, their 36th year. But the topics are really good because we have, Greg Casey, who's with Sagen, one of the default insurers, and he's there speaking about statistics in Ottawa, but really deep down statistics, which real estate agents have access to, but he breaks it down even more than that. And then we have Brandon Ray also, and he's the manager of policy and external relations with the Ottawa Real Estate Board, and he'll talk about what's going on with real estate agents, maybe some of the changes that are coming down the road. And then Tanya Wood, who's with Questrade, government relations, and she was on the show about a month ago. So she's one of the speakers as well. And it's a really good lineup. Again, great opportunity for real estate agents. $60, $65, I think, to attend. Comes with free lunch. Comes with lunch. And you can bring...
That'll get them every time.
Every time. And you can bring an associate with you. So that's almost like 2 people for $65. So...
when is it and where?
It's May 28th at the Hilton by the airport there. So
if agents are interested, how would they get
Hilton Garden Inn.
How would they get tickets?
They can go to CMBA, so Canadian Mortgage Broker Association, CMBA Ontario. Just go to cmbaontario.ca, and then there'll be a list of all the events that they can attend. And it's really worthwhile. Like I said, it'll be great education. In both our industries, right, Glenn? I mean, our goal is to be as knowledgeable as possible and not only know the real estate, but even for me, I mean, I need to know mortgages, but I like to know what's going on in the real estate industry, and you learn a lot from this show. But also on the real estate agent side, they need to understand what's out there when it comes to mortgage lending, because it's not all about the banks. The banks are just a piece of it. There's other lenders out there that are way better in many cases for many of the clients that they're working with. And to understand what they do better will only allow them to be better at their own professions.
And why do people care where they get their money from?
Oh, they're scared, right? I think they
scared
grew up.
Scared of what, though?
And I will say to clients, listen, if the lender disappears and all of a sudden you don't have a mortgage, is that a bad thing?
Exactly.
I mean, I say when I invest money, I need to know who I'm giving it to. But if somebody's lending me money and all of a sudden they fall off the face of the earth, which they won't, because a lot of these lenders are backed by the big banks and their portfolio is worth a lot. So
or they'll get bought up by somebody else, right?
Somebody will take it over, so for sure.
So I could never understand that.
Yeah, but again, people are just, they like what they know, and if what they don't know scares them, and that's the problem.
Wow.
So, yep.
So you're out and about today on a long weekend. There's dedication.
Is there a lot of open houses this weekend or no, because it's a long weekend?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I find open houses on long weekends can be hit or miss. I'm not doing one this weekend, but
I bet you'll be barbecuing, though.
Yes, I will be doing that. I do like my barbecue.
Master barbecue. What are we barbecuing?
Usually
it involves either chicken or steak. That's usually what it is.
Hey, we're all going to Glenn's house.
Pasta for me, so hey.
Yeah, I've tried pasta, but it slips through
I know. It doesn't work on a barbecue as well, so yeah.
Birthdays, Frank?
I got a couple. James Leach, one of our great brokers, agents, mortgage agents, celebrating his birthday this week, as well as my good friend Renzo Catana, who celebrated his birthday this week, and my beautiful granddaughter, who turned 6 months this week, too. And I'm going to start doing the months with my granddaughter because it's my granddaughter. So, Amelia, my principessa, happy 6 months. And, again, Tammy Laverty, good friend of mine, a real estate agent, celebrating her birthday today as well.
Oh,
so
nice.
Happy birthday.
Anything, Glenn? No birthdays?
No, he wasn't ready for that.
How do we get a hold of you?
Go Oilers.
No. Go Canucks. Go Canucks.
How do we get a hold of you?
I can be reached at my number, 613-979-5769, or you can get
788-2122. 17 years later.
Still got it, huh?
Or obviously at my email, glenn@paulrushforth.com.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Have a great long weekend.
Yes, have a great long weekend. Enjoy your families, and please support local businesses and charities.
Nice job, Glenn.
Thank you.